Hi, Neil Evans with the Harken Tech team. I'm here to do our third in our benchmark block series. I've talked at length about this. Today, I figured we'd bring in some experts from around our company. Today, I have with me the head of engineering here at Harken, Steve Orlebeck.
Okay, today, thanks Neil, we're going to talk about the 3405 1-ton twing block. The idea for this block came about from a lot of Pac 52 sailing I've been doing offshore. And on those boats and offshore boats today, a lot of furling code zeros and jib tops are used. And I quickly came to realize that we didn't have the proper block to be able to trim those sails properly. So this is a compact, very high load, easy to open with one hand and close with one hand block that can be rigged 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 to control the leach on these furling sails.
If you wouldn't mind, could you show us through the block?
Sure, there's a easy to use push button for your thumb to open it, spring loaded. It's a simple teardrop block. The shiv is aluminum, the side cheeks are aluminum. The axial bearing in the shiv is a plain bearing, so it can be very high load and compact. And there's also Torlon ball bearings in the sides of the shiv for thrust loads.
What are the little pins in the center for?
The pins on the inside of the block are, if this is rigged on a small diameter sheet, 7 or 8 millimeters, and you have it rigged 2-to-1, without the pins it could capsize on itself when it's not loaded. So that's why we put those in there.
Steve, when you were working on the design for this block, what were some of the features and design aspects you were really looking for?
Oh, the block had to be easy to open and quick to rig, because typically the trimmer's rigging it on the leeward rail, potentially at night. And the ability to open it one-handed is really important as well.
I noticed the block is somewhat rubberized on the outside. Is it rubber?
Yep, we put some molded rubber covers over the side plates because these things can fly around and impact the deck or the side of the boat. So the rubber covers will help protect the boat.
So what category of block would you put this in? As far as like big boat, small boat, mid-range, our classic categories?
I would say, Neil, it's a little bit of an outlier. It's very small and strong. It's specifically designed to be a twing block for furling sails, but you could also put a loop in this and use it as a small high-load snatch block as well.
So how long has it been on the market, and what feedback have we gathered from it so far?
We launched the block in the spring of 2024, and we've sold quite a few of these into the Grand Prix offshore market, and they're being used by professional sailors and non-professionals as well, and we've got a lot of positive feedback from everybody who's used them. They're working very well.
Okay, let's talk about Protexit blocks. Protexit blocks are literally, as the name indicates, are exit blocks that are designed to go into masts, decks, anything where you need a line entering, say, through a hard surface, be it a bulkhead, spinnaker pole, whatever you need. This line isn't brand new, but it's ever expanding. We've added 4 new part numbers to it. We've added several larger diameter shivs, and we've also added a 40 millimeter double exit. And what's meant by a double exit is a block that has a shiv on each side to work as an exit. We've added 2 larger shiv diameters, both a 70 and 80 millimeter shiv diameter. And when we say that we're referring to the outside shiv diameter, edge to edge. We've added a double 40 mil exit, and we've also added a wide shiv 60 mil. So one thing to note with these wide shev versions, which we have two of them now, a 60 mil and a 40 mil. This is the 40 mil here. The shev design in it is a tulip style shev. What the tulip shev design does is it allows for the line to be entering or exit a non-fair lead, forcing it back into the center of the shev. So, so if the line was traveling out and it was off to the side, it's always going to travel back into the center of the shev and then down or whatever direction it's headed inside the boat or down the mast. If you guys remember, we developed the Protexit line of blocks, one as a replacement or an addition to the bullet line of exit blocks. What was happening as loads went up, the bullet line wasn't necessarily up to the task anymore. It was twisting, it was bending the plates, it was also very hard on the line. So with the Protexit, we came up with an all aluminum housing to prevent that twisting and that bending of the exit blocks. And we also, in that, we were able to machine and sculpt the exit so that they're very smooth and easy on the line so you don't get those chafe issues that you used to get. So with the Protexit line, one thing that I really do like is the all aluminum housing and shev and the fact that they are smooth. There's no hard edges, there's nothing to ruin them. When you spin the shev, they're smooth. They're a product you can pick up and you can actually feel the quality and the thought that went into it by just visually looking at it or touching it. We're here to talk about our ever-expanding Zircon line. Matt, why don't you come in here? Matt's one of our engineers here at Harken and is the product lead on this category of blocks. Matt, can you fill us in on what's going on with the Zircon line?
So Zircon is our lowest friction block, lowest friction bearing design that we've offered in any of our small boat products. We've got our whole product offering here on the bench, all 18 products that are currently available in 29, 40, and 57 mil sizes.
How many did we initially start with?
So initially it was the 57s and the 40s in the singles, single with Beckett, double, and double with Beckett. Our most recent addition is the full family of 29 mil blocks in singles, doubles, and triples, along with adding the triples in the 57 and 40 mil sizes.
Explain what Zircon is and what makes Zircon Zircon.
It's the bearing itself. If you compare these two, you've got 7 or 8 balls, depending on the size of Zircon block, with these tiny ceramic bearings, where the comparable Carbo block has somewhere from 40 to 50 ball bearings in Delrin plastic. So the bearing itself is that much harder, stronger, durable compared to the Delrin product. The other part of the bearing is the outer race, the white bit of ceramic, and the inner race, also a white bit of ceramic. And those 3 polished surfaces between the inner race, outer race, and the ball bearing provide the smoothest feel, and that's what you actually tangibly can feel with your hand.
These balls, they're ultra smooth. They're polished, clean, and that's what really removes the friction from them. But we put 40 or so in a 40 mil Carbo block. Why so few in a 40 millimeter Zircon block?
There's a couple reasons there. One is the materials itself. The ceramic materials are very hard compared to the Delrin or any of the other plastic bearings we use. Because it's so hard, you don't need 6 balls to do the job of 1. The other reason for fewer balls is when we designed the blocks initially, we said, well, for the singles especially, how much load can you hold in your hand? What would you say, 50, 75? Maybe if I'm two hands and 2 feet, I can hold 100 pounds?
Consistently?
But
Yeah,
I'm certainly
75 to 50.
not pulling the 750 pound catalog load of a 57 Carbo block. But I can hold 50 pounds, 100 pounds. So we took all of that extra out and really matched. When you look at the catalog brake loads and working loads, that's why they may look a little different and a little lower than you may think, because they're matched for trimming with handheld loads compared to a winch-loaded block. So because we really matched the Zircon product around handheld loads and taking all the extra capacity and the extra weight of the product out, that really gives you the performance aspect of these blocks over a Carbo product.
So should I be replacing everything I have in Carbo with Zircon?
No, I don't think that's the case. There's no one block that's perfect for every application across the whole product line.
So one thing I've always noted with these is that we only offer them in soft attached versions. Can you explain why we went with that design aspect to it and what the thinking behind that was?
Yeah, Neil, that's right. The whole Zircon product offering is only available in soft attached product. Kind of going hand in hand with the removing what we don't need. If you're going to have a piece of Dyneema or other high performance line that you're splicing anyways, why would you have a shackle? Let's tailor the blocks to reduce the weight, take out everything you don't need. Same goes for the rivets. We didn't feel that the weight of a rivet was, I won't say it's not important, because it's certainly important how a Carbo block is designed, but we had other ways to hold the block together, and relying on the line to help provide some of that performance as well.
So what has the feedback been from the...
All good so far. Zircon is all about the feel of how your sheet, how your sails really interact with your hand. Taking any of that extra friction, putting all that feedback into your hand rather than losing it through a block.
We're here to talk about another new block in the Harken line. It's our 40 millimeter Carbo Twing block, and we're here with senior engineer Chuck Loeb to talk about this. Chuck, what can you tell us about this block?
This is the Twing block. It's based on our Carbo line, and in this case we're calling it this is a Twing block. And the primary objectives of this block were to be single-handed operation, like that. Also to come in at a weight of less than 95 grams, have a maximum working load of 300 kilograms, be able to take a 12 millimeter sheet, and also be able to be rigged as 2-to-1, as this spacer at the top is actually a little roller, so it can be rigged either 1-to-1 with a direct attachment or 2-to-1 through.
So what can you tell us about the materials that it's made out of?
The material is the same as we use in our Carbo block line, which we've been using for over 25 years. It's a very strong material. We have a lot of confidence in it. And when we do plastic blocks, we typically do a 3-to-1 safety factor, because sun can affect it a little bit, and we want to make sure that 10 years down the road, it still holds up to the working loads that we rate it for.
Chuck, you referred to this as it's made as our Carbo blocks. What makes it made as our Carbo blocks?
All of our Carbo block lines are injection molded in-house with a 40% long glass filled nylon. When it's injection mold like that, we have the capability of really contouring it, making it smooth. So in this case, with a twing block, which is subject to a lot of flogging, possible deck damage, it's very gentle when it's hitting decks or getting flogged around.
This is your design, it's kind of your project. What's your favorite part about it?
My favorite part is the latch actuation, where we had to get to a single-handed operation, and the fact that we put a spring in there to clam it open. It makes it super easy for the user to snatch it on to a sheet.
So this is a relatively new block to our line. How long has it been on the market? And in that time, what kind of feedback have we heard?
I haven't heard any negative things about the block, and usually if there's something really wrong with it, we hear about it immediately. We've had a couple positive reviews from in-house sailors who especially like the single-handed operation.
I'm here to talk about a new assortment of blocks we have that feature the Tulip Shiv. I have Jeremy McMahon here to help me do that. Jeremy's a part of our engineering team. So Jeremy, can you run us through why we evolved this line of blocks?
Yeah, so many of our largest boat building customers came to us and asked us to help solve two problems. The first was cost, and so what we came up with is a way to reduce some of the components and features. So this is a single piece bend stamped housing, so there's no head post, there's no shackle for swiveling, reduces the part count. And then the second thing that we did to solve for them was they asked to help with a misalignment problem that can happen with some inconsistencies in their manufacturing. And so a tulip shiv is the answer to that. The tulip shiv is the shape of the groove. Instead of being a U shape, it is shaped like the tulip, the flower, so that as the line comes deflected in, it pushes it to the center groove of the shiv. So that helps with the misalignment. It can take, 5 to 10 degrees, maybe a little bit more, depending on line size and shiv diameter, misalignment of the block, where a regular shiv cannot do that.
So we're all pretty familiar with foot blocks or cheek blocks and how they're used and mounted on boats. Can you walk us through the applications of the crossover, the over the top, and the mass-based block?
Yeah. So first we have the mass-based block. You can also consider this just a general lead block, but the most used application will be at the base of a mast, and that's so you can have a 90-degree turn to lead up the mast. Instead of having a swivel block at the bottom that never swivels, you can use this type of block in its place to help with a little bit of misalignment, as well as bringing the shiv as low to the deck as possible. For the crossover, this is a block that we use when you don't always have a permanent need for a turning angle, and so you can put a line around the shiv and lead it in any angle you want, or you could take it off if you wanted to go the other direction. And then the over the top is the opposite of the lead block. Instead of the line going under the shiv and leading up, it goes over the shiv and leads down. The two bent tabs, as you see on the housing, those are there in order to keep the line, since it's going over the top, from ever popping out if it gets loosened up. However, because we needed to make it one piece, we decided to add a feature where you can remove the line by taking it out like that instead of pulling it all the way from one end. This allows, if you ever need to, if you're coming over, let's say, a big feature on a catamaran, you could use this same block for multiple lines if you're only going to use one at a time. You could drop one in, lay the other one right next to it, use it as an over-the-top that leads to the winch, take it out when you're done.
Can you walk us through the installation of the mass-based block and the over-the-top block? I know they have a couple unique features.
Yeah, we came up with a pretty cool system to mount these. So with these single piece stamped housings, there are two ways you can mount them. One is you could remove the shiv and the inner race and line the housing up and drill the 3 holes to mount it, and then you can bolt it down. But if you can't remove the shiv, if you're, let's say, going to line multiple of these up next to each other right at a mast base and you can't pull the inner race out, we came up with another application. On the back hole, we have a little washer that can get mounted first that has a little riser on it, and then you can take the block and slide it into place and then mount the 2 holes in the front. That would be instead of removing the shiv.
Can you walk us through what the backing plate on the mass-based blocks is for?
Yeah, so this is another, we call this the trim washer. This piece is used on the 2 holes on the mass-based block in order to give it some extra strength, as the line, if you feed this through here, for example, the line goes vertical, and so when you pull on this, the entire housing wants to pull up and squish together. In order to keep it spread apart so that there's no pinching of the shiv, we added that trim washer on the front to give it some strength and stability.
So Jeremy, can you run us through the bearing system of these shivs? Can you show us what's inside?
Sure. Inside the Tulip shivs, we have a sleeve bearing, a journal bearing on the inside pressed in, and then on the outside we use Torlon ball bearings for the thrust load. All of the shivs get used the same on the over-the-top, the lead block, and the foot block. However, the crossover, because it's an asymmetric design and doesn't have a, we'd call it a cheek on top, this is a slightly different shape with a wider ball groove on the bottom than on the top. And then there is a big inner race that fits from this flange up, and that's what keeps this whole thing strong and straight when it's being used.
Given this is a newer addition to our line, where would a customer see these for?
Most of the time, they'd probably see them on new boat builds, especially the large catamarans, as they're trying to reduce costs and all the equipment that they're using. Anywhere that you can get away from using a swivel block and go to a fixed direction block, they could definitely be used there. By being a fixed block and without swiveling, you get rid of the swiveling head post and the shackle, or potentially a soft attached loop, but you also get rid of whatever it's mounted to, whether that's a pad eye or a mast collar or anything. These can be mounted directly to the deck.
So do you see an aftermarket for these products?
Yes, I think if you are looking to add an application, maybe another halyard or use for a foot block that you didn't already have, the Tulip shiv variety of product does allow for the misalignment, as I spoke about. So it should be a little bit easier to drill and install yourself than you would with a regular product. Another thing is, if you're going to add a pad eye to add a block somewhere, if you don't need a swivel application, you can just drill the 3 holes for one of the over the top or lead blocks instead.